The stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisperer in Darkness. I'm your host, the manfromleng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, we are taking a first look at Into Deep, the first Mythos pack from the Innsmouth Conspiracy Cycle. This was announced on Thursday by FFG. I was on vacation this week, so I didn't have a chance to dig into it until now. But we are going to take a look at this Mythos pack, and it looks like it will be a good one. We are visiting the classic Lovecraftian setting of Innsmouth. We're going to get to see a lot of the iconic locations of that terrible town, and meet some more deep ones. We haven't had a chance to since the core set. We've only had the one deep one to worry about, and now we're going to get a bunch more. So I am looking forward to this upcoming Mythos pack. Before I get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. Special thanks to our latest patron who embraced the darkness, Ed Hastings. Thank you very much, Ed, for your tremendous support. It is always appreciated. The Arkham Horror LCG community is amazing, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these Mythos pack previews, as well as my card reviews and playthroughs. If you'd like to become a patron of the channel and see your name up on this list, head over to patreon.com, sign up for a tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Well, we are headed off to Innsmouth in Too Deep. Now, I believe the deluxe expansion, the Innsmouth Conspiracy, we begin trapped in some tunnels underneath or near the town. We don't start in the town proper, and during the two scenarios in the deluxe expansion, it sounds like we managed to escape these tunnels and make our way to Innsmouth. And man, there is a lot going on in Innsmouth. The town has been invaded by the Deep Ones. We have Deep Ones patrolling the alleys and intersections of the town. We have makeshift barricades blocking the streets, which we will take a look at in a moment. There are barricades all over the place, preventing investigators from moving freely about the locations. There are quite a few of them in this expansion. I imagine the locations will take up much of the encounter set. So probably the encounter deck will be made up of a lot of cards from the deluxe expansion, as well as the one encounter set from the core set. So we will have to deal with these barricades. In addition to dealing with all the deep ones and the barricades, seawater is flooding Innsmouth Harbor. And that seawater the tides will begin to rise across the town as the investigators make their way. We start on the shore, and we have to escape to the train station where our car is parked on the opposite side of the map. So we are, in addition to the deep ones and the barricades, we also have flooding to worry about. As you may remember, in the deluxe expansion, we will be getting flooded tokens. We will have the one side is partially flooded, and the opposite side are fully flooded locations. You do not want to be caught in fully flooded locations if you can help it at all. The consequences of that can be extremely bad. Finally, in addition to deep ones, barricades, and flooding, there are key tokens representing vital information about what has happened to Innsmouth, as well as the investigators, hidden throughout the town. The key tokens were introduced in the deluxe expansion, and it gives designer Matt Newman a chance to put some keys. We can collect the keys. Now, we don't know whether all of them will be essential or only some of them, or whether they'll all be optional. But you will have a chance to go through the town, pick up keys, and these keys will trigger effects on some of the locations. Who knows where these keys will be hidden? There are 15 locations in this scenario, so there is many different places they can hide, and many different places where we can trigger them. I am looking forward to finding out whether there are some keys that are essential and others that are not, or some that just provide you a little bit of extra information about the conspiracy that is taking place in the town. So a lot going on in this scenario. We have enemies, we've got barricades, we've got flooding, and we've got keys to find. So lots of things for us to do into Deep. Now here is the preview article that was posted by FFG. Put up a picture of the location setup for Innsmouth. Now, it's not clear to me whether the locations are randomized at all, or whether this is the map that you get. It seems to me, based on some of the location placements, that they are not random. As you can see down in the lower right-hand corner, we have the coastline. That is where we begin the scenario, and then we have the railroad station up in the upper left-hand corner. That is where we need to get to. So a lot of locations a lot of ground to cover. There are, according to the preview article, the flooding begins at Innsmouth Harbor, which is one location north of the coastline. So that should be where the flooding begins, and I assume that it will be spreading out from there until it overwhelms the entire town. Now, the Innsmouth is one of those classic Lovecraftian settings. We get to visit many of the iconic locations in the town. There's the Gilman House. You may remember that is the hotel where the protagonist in the Innsmouth in Shadow over Innsmouth stays and makes his escape from. We've got the Esoteric Order of Dagon. That is the main villains in this scenario. We've got the Marsh Refinery, of course, the Marsh family being the one of the main families in Innsmouth. They control most of the fishing and all of the cult activity. And of course, we have Silas Marsh as an investigator coming out in the deluxe expansion. So that will be we will see if he has any extra text that goes along with that. And of course, we've got the harbor and various. We've got 15 locations to explore. So that's going to take up a significant chunk of the encounter deck that comes with this in this Mythos pack. Now, as you can see, there are various resources placed between the locations, ranging from 1 to 4. Those are the barricades. Investigators may not move between locations with barricades, so it looks like this is the reason I don't think the locations are randomized, because it seems like you start sort of at the harbor and then you move west across the map, and the locations sort of seem thematically tied to each other. You've got Innsmouth Square right in the center, and everything sort of radiates out from there. So I suspect, one possibility is that the locations are randomized north to south. So maybe you take the 3 locations, say the house on Walter Street, Innsmouth Harbor, and the coastline, shuffle those together and then lay them out. So you would do that with each of the 5, or maybe it's just this is the map you get and you have to play with it. So there are a lot of locations to deal with. We have the barriers in between. Obviously, the locations with one barrier will be easier to get through than the locations we see. Connecting the Esoteric Order of Dagon with the railroad station, that has 4 barrier tokens. The game text on these locations will help you remove the barriers, so you will be able to remove those barriers and move east to west. So you can move north to south freely, but you cannot move east to west without removing the barriers first. Now, observant investigators out there will notice there is a path of least resistance. We have, if you follow the train of locations with only 1 barrier each, you can see that you can travel up to Innsmouth Harbor, over to the bridge, down to that alley location, over to the jail, and then all the way up to, what is that, New Church Green, and then over to the Esoteric Order of Dagon, and then back down through the grocery store and Gilman House over to the alley, Sawbone Alley, and then up to the little bookshop and to the railway station. So that is the path of least resistance if you just want to deal with one barrier locations the whole way through. Now that is 12 move actions. That is even if you were able to take 3 move actions per turn, that would still take you 4 full turns to cross the map. Chances are that many of these obstacles will require actions themselves to remove, so it's going to take you time to cross this map if you follow this path of least resistance. That leads me to believe that movement cards like Shortcut, Pathfinder, cards like that, Astral Travel, anything that helps you move faster. I believe we've got Safeguard in the Guardian card pool. Any of those cards are going to be fantastic in this scenario to help you move that much quicker as the flood approaches from Innsmouth Harbor. So a lot of movement will be required in this scenario. This is probably, I'd have to say, I think it's probably the biggest map that we have had yet. 15 locations is probably the most. I can't think of another scenario off the top of my head that has this many locations. So we are getting a very good look at the entire town, and we will go from down in the lower right-hand corner all the way up to the upper left-hand corner. So, of course, if you want, I mean, you can take the path of least resistance, which we know is 12 moves, or you can try to get there in as few as, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can get there in 6 moves if you just basically head straight north and then straight west. You can get there in as little as 6 moves. Now, of course, you're going to have to deal with some barriers that way. You're going to have to deal with 4, 5, 9 barriers. How many do you have to deal with if you go the easy way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 barriers versus 1, 4, 5. Yeah, so it's you're dealing with a lot fewer barriers if you go the longer way. If you decide to take a shortcut and just barrel through locations, you are going to encounter many more barriers and probably many more actions required to deal with those barriers. We have the preview article included a couple of examples of the locations that we will encounter. First up is the Shoreward Slums. It is a 2-shroud location with 1 clue. It has the Innsmouth coastal and midtown traits. The forced effect is after this location is revealed, randomly choose one of the set-aside face-down keys and place it on this location without looking at it. So if you visit the Shoreward Slums, you will also find a key, which is important. And I do not know how we get the keys. I assume that if all of the clues on this location are gone, you will be able to pick up the key, and away you go. I just noticed actually there are no location connectors on this particular card either. So maybe they are randomized north to south. That would certainly give the scenario a little bit more replayability, because you don't really know. You after you play it a few times, you would know which are the best locations, but they may be mixed up in such a way that you'll have to figure out a new way through this labyrinth every time you play it, which would be cool, I think. And who knows, when we see Return to the Innsmouth Conspiracy in a few years' time, we'll probably see maybe a few more Innsmouth locations added to this map. Maybe another whole layer inserted into it. So another 3 locations inserted somewhere into the map. That would be make it that much more interesting. So Shoreward Slums, 2 Shroud, 1 Clue, and it has the free triggered ability, take 1 damage, parlay, remove 1 barrier between this location and a connecting location. So in the sample map that FFG provided, the Shoreward Slums is connected to the Innsmouth Jail. Now, we don't know if that will be the case, if the locations are randomized at all. It could just be any of those locations, I think. But so removing that one of those barriers is going to be pretty easy. You just have to, as a free triggered ability, you take 1 damage and away you go. So that does not require any actions. Now, in this map, it is connected to the Innsmouth Jail by 1 barrier, so you just have to take 1 damage. But if it was placed on a 2 or 3 barrier location, you would have to take 2 or 3 damage in order to clear Shoreward Slums. So it may not be necessarily, if it's at a 1 barrier location, sure, I'll take 1 damage and as a free triggered ability and move. But if it switches places at all and you have to take 2 or 3 damage, especially as an investigator with who isn't a guardian who has health to spare, taking all that damage could really add up, and you may need to find yourself a different route through the labyrinth. So that is one way to remove a barrier. We also received a spoiler of another location. This is the Innsmouth Jail. It is a 3 Shroud location with 1 Clue, and it has the action spend 3 resources, parlay, remove 1 barrier between this location and a connecting location, and it has the free triggered ability, if you control the black key, parlay, read flashback 8 in the campaign guide, and it is worth a victory point. So victory points are another thing. You're going to want to find those locations with victory points and try to clear those as well as make your way through the labyrinth. So if these locations move at all, it will be very interesting indeed. Now, as we can see on this map, the Innsmouth Jail is connected to Gilman House. We don't know if this will always be the case, but there are 3 barrier tokens there, so that will require us to take 3 actions and spend 3 resources per action. That is 3 actions and 9 resources to clear that barrier. That is, in solo play, that is a pretty big ask. That is going to be a full turn just to clear that barrier to get to the Gilman House. Now, it would save you a significant number of actions. If you head north from the Innsmouth Jail, you'd have to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to get through to Gilman House. If you spend the resources, it would only take 3 actions plus 1 for the move, so it would take 4. So we don't know what the other locations do, but it's if you've got the resources to spend, it might be worthwhile taking a shortcut to Gilman House. Now again, the location card just says between this location and a connecting location. So if the Innsmouth Jail was to swap places with one of the other locations north to south, that would be you could end up with maybe 2 or even just 1 barrier token to deal with. So slightly less action and resource intensive. So this is going to be exciting to see how this map changes, if it changes at all. I mean, this could very well be the map that you play. If you play this scenario, this is the location setup you deal with. But I suspect that Matt Newman has some tricks in store for us, and these locations are not going to have the potential to move around a little bit. I think Innsmouth Square is probably going to be in the center. That seems fairly. That seems like it's going to happen. The square should be in the center, but then maybe things can move around a little bit from there, which would really change up how you make your way through this labyrinth game after game. I am looking forward to visiting some of these locations and seeing what you do. As we see here as well, that this the Innsmouth Jail has the free triggered ability if you control the black key. So theoretically, on this particular map, if you pick up the black key at random at the Shoreward Slums, you could trigger its ability at the Innsmouth Jail. Now the keys are random, and there are quite a few keys. I believe when I did my preview of the Innsmouth Conspiracy, there was one key for each color, each class color. So blue, yellow, green, purple, and red. There was also a white and a black key. So that's there's potentially 7 keys hidden on this map, and we know where you can get one of them and where you can trigger the black key. So again, lots of things to do. Yeah, so we've besides dealing with the deep ones and picking your way through these locations, we've got the many keys here, as you can see from the Innsmouth Conspiracy preview article. We've got the samples of the key. There's the black key sitting over there on the right-hand side, so that is pretty. And of course, we have our blessed and cursed tokens, and this also gives a pretty good look at the front and back sides of the flood tokens that you are going to be placing on the map as the scenario goes along. Curious to find out how long this scenario will be, what the doom threshold on the agendas will be. Looks like there is going to be a lot to do between dealing with enemies, barricades, keys, and flooding. You're going to need some time to get across the map and deal with all that stuff. So I assume it's going to be maybe a little bit. I guess it depends on how many agendas we have, but maybe one short agenda to kick off the flooding, and then maybe a longer agenda that gives you more time as the flooding proceeds across the town. You can see that the partially flooded token, the planets are not aligned, and then on the fully flooded token, the planets are aligned and the flood is in black. So those are the tokens we will be using. Lots of stuff going on in Too Deep. We have not encountered deep ones as of yet. You could encounter, if you played the final scenario in the core set, the name completely escapes me for the time being. You did have a chance to encounter the young deep one. You could use that encounter set at random, but we have not encountered deep ones thus far. We are getting many deep ones in between the deluxe expansion and the Mythos packs. We are going to be seeing a lot of deep ones. The encounter set from the core set, we have the young deep one. It's got 3 fight, 3 health, and 3 evade. Humanoid monster deep one, prey lowest combat. It's a hunter. Now, this is a theme that all of the deep ones that we've seen so far seem to have. All of them seem to be hunters thus far. The other theme is the forced effect. After young deep one engages you, take 1 horror. All of the deep ones seem to have this forced effect that after they engage you, something terrible happens to you. So the deep ones not only will be hunting you as you move across the map, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, given the flood is coming and you are going to be running away from the flood, the deep ones are going to be chasing after you. So it makes perfect sense that the deep ones would have hunter, and they have these abilities that trigger once they engage you. The young deep one is kind of similar to the goat spawn. I believe the goat spawn, after it died, it would deal a horror to you. This one, after, no, I'm not thinking, which one? The Maniac from the Path to Carcosa. That's the one I'm thinking of, not the Goat Spawn. The Maniac, you would deal a damage to it, and it would deal a damage to you every time it engaged you. So this is similar to that, except it's the horror version of it. So rather than deal a damage every time this thing engages you, you take a horror. So evading this thing is not... it's risky. If you evade it once, you want to try to stay away from it, because every time it catches you, you're going to take a horror, and that is going to add up, especially on a large map like the town. It is going to be you're going to have to be moving pretty quickly, and you're going to want to stay ahead of the deep ones. Now, it'll be do the barricades affect the deep ones? We don't know that, so. It could be possible that the enemies simply ignore all the barricades. So even if you think you have escaped them by moving across the map, they can take shortcuts and catch up with you really quickly. So those hunters you're probably gonna want to deal with this one if you can. When it engages you, kill it, so you don't have to worry about taking horror for the rest of the scenario. Now, the other card in this encounter set, of course, is Dreams of Relay. It says, Revelation, put Dreams of Relay into play in your threat area. You get -1 willpower and -1 sanity, and it has the action, test 3 willpower. If you succeed, discard Dreams of Relay. This is a nasty treachery. -1 willpower and -1 sanity. You combine that with the Young Deep One that's pinging you for horror every time it engages you, and you will not be long for this world. -1 willpower is awful, given that the number of willpower treacheries that are in this game. There are more willpower treacheries than any other, so if you are at -1 taking each of those treacheries, if you combine this, say, with the Striking Fear encounter set, Rotting Remains suddenly becomes a real danger to every investigator that has even average willpower. And even those investigators with above average willpower are suddenly in danger too of failing this. Same with Frozen in Fear. Trying to clear that with this in your threat area is going to be that much harder. So I am not looking forward to drawing this one. And of course, it has the action test 3 willpower. Again, to succeed, you've got to succeed to discard it. And testing 3 willpower when you're taking a -1 willpower is going to be that's rough. So anybody with like a Jenny Barnes with an average willpower, she's testing 2v3, and that's not great right off the bat. So you are probably going to want to pack Guts or any other cards that boost your willpower to make sure that you have enough willpower skill icons to deal with this thing. Because I would not want to see this in my threat area for very long. It will punish you severely. Now, the preview article contains a couple of other deep ones. One is the Emerging Deep One. He has 3 fight, 2 health, 1 evade, humanoid monster deep one. Hunter, of course, as many of the deep ones are. He has the Revelation effect. Emerging Deep One enters play exhausted and unengaged unless its location is fully flooded. So as long as you encounter this guy early during a scenario, say turn 1, during the Mythos phase, he's unlikely, your location hopefully will not be flooded that quickly. So this guy enters play exhausted and unengaged. However, he does have the Hunter keyword, so that will not last long. And then he has the Forced effect. After Emerging Deep One engages you, if your location is flooded, it attacks you. So this... again, here's a Deep One with another ability like the Young Deep One that triggers when he engages you. And if your location is flooded, I think that's flooded could be partially or fully flooded. Either way, This guy engages you and attacks you for 1 damage and 1 horror, and then during the enemy phase, he is going to attack you again for another damage and another horror. That is going to add up quickly if you get attacked too many times. Fortunately, he does enter play exhausted and unengaged, so you have a chance to get away from this guy, and you better take it, because otherwise, when he engages you on a turn, he has the potential to hit you pretty hard. And he's going to ding you again, like the Young Deep one. When he engages you, you take a horror. When this guy engages you, unless you have some way of preventing that attack, you're taking a horror and a damage. So it's sort of a similar effect, but a little bit worse. Just the way it's like the Young Deep one was take a horror. This is basically take a damage and a horror when he engages you, if your location is flooded. So this includes, say, if you move to his location and he engages you, he will immediately attack you if the location is flooded, dealing you a damage and a horror. Or if you engage him off another investigator, he will attack you. You're going to take a damage and a horror. So yeah, this guy could get pretty nasty if you do not deal with him when he engages you, because you're going to get hit once, and then if you haven't dealt with him by the time the enemy phase rolls around, he is going to hit you again. I'm just thinking that this is a good opportunity for what would happen if you played Heroic Rescue on this guy. I was just thinking of Nathaniel Cho. If he plays Heroic Rescue, this thing engages he would engage one investigator, potentially dealing a damage and a horror if he is at a flooded location. Say that investigator takes an action, and Guardian was to play Heroic Rescue, so he would get, I think what would happen, the Emerging Deep one would engage with the Guardian, deal a damage and a horror, and then deal another damage and a horror due to the attack. So you would get attacked twice, and then potentially a third time if you didn't deal with him. Now, the good thing about this guy is that he's pretty weak. He's only got 3 combat, so a lot of investigators should be able to hit this guy for a damage. He's only got 2 health too, so he's pretty easy to kill for most investigators. He doesn't have that annoying 3 health that many terrible enemies have, and he certainly doesn't have 4. So he's relatively weak, and he doesn't have much life, and he's very easy to evade. I mean, there are very few investigators who, I'm thinking Harvey Walters, he's even got a 2. Most investigators do okay. At least they're, who is it? Norman, I think he has 1 agility. I can't remember, but you can get away from this guy. It's just if he catches you, you're going to be taking damage. So an interesting enemy here, potentially really annoying with that engagement attack going off every time he switches investigators. The other deep one, we get the art for the pack, which is always nice to see. Beautiful picture here by Matthew Cowdery. I believe it's Matthew Cowdery. The Ravager from the Deep, 2 fight, 4 health, 1 evade, humanoid monster deep one. Hunter, of course. While its location is flooded, Ravager from the Deep gets +1 fight and +1 evade, +2 fight and +2 evade if its location is fully flooded. So at partially flooded locations, this guy is a 3/4/2, and at fully flooded locations, he's a 4/4/3. So he becomes bigger as the waters rise. He's pretty easy. Well, he's easy to hit with only 2 fight. He's going to be fairly easy to hit. That 4 health is a bit of a pain because it's going to take you 2 full attacks with most weapons. Most weapons in the game to take this guy down. shriveling charges, whatnot. I mean, you're going to need to, it's going to take you at least a couple actions to kill this guy. Unless, of course, you're playing Nathaniel, who has many ways of dealing 4 damage in a couple of attacks with one action. Again, this guy is fairly easy to get away from with only one evade off the bat, but that will get quite a bit tougher. I would hate to be Harvey Walters trapped at a flooded location with this guy bearing down on you. He would be very difficult for Harvey to take down with anything but like I've got a plan or something like that. You would need that in order to deal with this guy easily. And of course, he also has a forced effect. After Ravager from the Deep engages you, test 2 combat. If you fail, place 1 barrier between your location and the connecting location to the west. So again, another on-engagement effect, this time throwing up a barrier between you and the location to your west. If you fail a Combat 2 check. Now, Combat 2, not that difficult. Combat checks outside of fight actions are fairly rare in this game, but Combat 2... I mean, Guardians, most investigators aren't going to have trouble with this. Somebody like Harvey Walters, on the other hand, this is, I think this enemy is Harvey's worst nightmare, because not only when it engages him, Harvey will likely fail the combat skill test, throwing up another barrier, but if the location is flooded, this thing is really tough to kill for a seeker investigator like Harvey. So... again, Wendy is another one who doesn't like this guy all that much. She can get away from him easily enough because of her high agility skill value. But that combat will trip up the weaker investigators in the card pool for sure. Now, I don't know how awful the addition of a barrier will be. I guess it depends what that location, like how you can remove the barrier at that location. Say if it was at that slums location where you simply take a damage to remove the barrier, that's not so bad. I mean, nobody wants to take damage, but it's a free triggered ability, so you can easily get rid of it if you, say, evaded this guy. But if it was at that location, the jail, where you have to spend an action and 3 resources, now that's a much more significant cost. So the how bad that barrier is really depends on the location that you're dealing with. And this guy will hit for 2 damage and 1 horror. So a bit beefier. He will 2 damage is nothing to sneeze at. But at least he doesn't have that engagement clause like the other guy does. Who has the potential to deal quite a bit of damage if you engage him off somebody and then get attacked. So all in all, it looks like we see the theme for the deep ones. They are going to be hunters, first of all, and they do have some interactions with the flooded locations, which you would expect. And I'm sure we'll see many more flooded locations because we are headed off to Devil's Reef later in this cycle. So these guys are going to be probably turned on a lot of the time. The later we go, probably not this guy in particular, just because he's going to be in this Mythos pack, but some of the other deep ones that are in the deluxe box and whatnot, we'll be encountering them again. So they are hunters. Some of them interact with the flooded locations, and most of these the deep ones that we've seen so far have effects that trigger when they engage you. So dealing with engagement seems to be one of the themes of this upcoming cycle. Of course, if you're playing solo, which I do most of the time, this is not, since you basically engage every enemy anyway, this is not too big a deal. Of course, you don't want additional effects that hit you when you engage, but this has much more relevance, I think, in multiplayer, where often investigators are swapping enemies. Like, I will engage your guy so you can take some action and whatnot. And so swapping enemies will be... it'll give investigators in multiplayer a little more food for thought before they just start swapping enemies willy-nilly to make sure that the Guardian can kill this guy and whatnot. So those are the deep ones. We also, the preview article contained a bunch of player card spoilers. Yeah, probably the most of any Mythos pack that we have seen, at least lately. I mean, it's been so long since we had a Mythos pack preview, but I don't think Weaver the Cosmos had that many. This one, we see the card fan has 5 cards, plus we had 3 more in the article, and at least one other card has been spoiled if you know where to look. So we know quite a few of the cards already in this Mythos pack. We're gonna deal with the card fan first of all. We'll take a look at the Riot Whistle. It is a 2-cost asset, Guardian asset with a willpower skill icon. Item tool. You may take an additional action during probably your turn, which can only be used to engage. Now, we can't see the end of the card, but I assume that's the end of the text on that one. And wow, talk about a card with a narrow ability. Obviously, yeah, incredibly narrow. I frankly don't see this being played all that often. Certainly, I don't think I would ever play it in solo unless, I mean, the only reason I could see playing it in solo would be if there were a ton of aloof enemies on the board, and you didn't want to take engage actions. But I think the engage action is probably one of the rarest actions in the game. I mean, fight, combat, or fight, investigate, agility obviously are above that. Parlay happens quite a bit depending on the scenario. Move is a huge, obviously move is an action you take a lot during a scenario, but engage, I just don't see this seeing a ton of play. The only way I could see it seeing play really is if there's a lot of aloof enemies, or B, there are a lot of these deep ones like we saw the emerging deep one who spawns unengaged and exhausted. So something like this Riot Whistle would be helpful if you want to engage that guy. But yeah, spending 2 resources and a card for an additional action that can be only used to engage seems pretty narrow to me. So not a great start for the Guardians in this pack. I'm probably missing something with this card, but just the way it seems right now is very narrow. I certainly don't think I'll be playing it, but who knows? We haven't seen what is in the deluxe blocks or what the scenarios are like. So perhaps engaging enemies is a theme. Certainly it is with the deep ones, since they have engagement, a lot of forced effects that trigger on engagement. So perhaps engaging enemies is important, and the Riot Whistle will find a home. Who knows? But just based on this preview, man, I'm not a fan of the Riot Whistle. The second one is the Eldritch Sophist, a 4-cost Seeker asset. Again, a willpower skill icon. Ally and Miskatonic trait, so that works with that new card in the Harvey Walters Investigator starter deck. He can have 2 additional allies if they have the Miskatonic trait. This guy fits right in with that. He uses 3 secrets, and he has a free triggered ability, Exhaust Eldritch Sophist. Move 1 secret or charge from an asset you control to another asset controlled by an investigator at your location. He takes up an ally slot and has 1 health and 3 sanity. Now, this guy reminds me a lot of Venturer from the Forgotten Age for the Guardians. Again, 4 cost, uses 3 supplies. Slightly different health and sanity values. Of course, the Venture allowed you to spend one supply on the Adventurer and exhaust him to place one supply or ammo on an asset controlled by an investigator at your location. The Eldritch Sophist is similar, but the game text is tweaked slightly. You just exhaust the Eldritch Sophist. You don't spend a secret on him, and then you can move a secret or charge from an asset you control to another asset controlled by an investigator. So if you move a secret, presumably you can move one of the secrets on the Sophist to one of your cards that uses secrets. There are too many to count at this point. I mean, we've got all of the Ancient Stones, Old Book of Lore 3, a lot of different cards that use secrets. And this guy gives you a way to move your secrets around a little bit. So he gives you 3 secrets, which you can then dump on something that uses secrets. So if you have, say, one of those, the Combat Ancient Stone out, you can drop that into play. You'll have X number of secrets depending on how you did when you solved the stone. And then this guy will give you 3 more on top of that. So that's pretty useful. I think if Harvey Walters wanted to go for the Ancient Stone as a combat option, this guy would fit right in there because he has the Miskatonic trait. You pick... so Harvey could have the Combat Stone, and this guy, he'd have X secrets on the stone plus another 3 secrets plus a nice soak. 3 horror is always nice if you've got Dreams of Rillier in your threat area, and you need that a little bit of extra sanity to soak that horror that you are going to be taking. He is vulnerable to damage, of course, but having 3 sanity, that's awfully nice. Now, he also lets you move charges around, but he doesn't come with any charges of his own, which is different than the Venturer, who can do supply or ammo. The Eldritch Sophist can only move secrets or charges, but he doesn't come with charges, so you'd have to have other cards in play, like... say if you were playing a Daisy build, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, if you had a Daisy build that had, say, Mists of Rillier and Shriveling in play, this guy can move the charges between those cards as you wish. So say if you had 4 Shriveling and 4 Mist charges, but you find that you are evading more than you're fighting, perhaps this guy can move some of the charges from Shriveling to Mists, and vice versa. If you find you're fighting more and you're not evading, then you can bring all those Mists charges over to Shriveling, and the only thing that it costs you is you've got to play the Eldritch Sophist and then just exhaust him. So, but I think this guy I think is definitely going to find a role to play. I've been testing Harvey Walters for an upcoming video I'm going to be making about the starter deck investigators, and this is the type of guy I was looking for to add more charges and secrets to some of the cards that I was using. I was hoping to be able to use him with Archaic Glyphs Prophecy Foretold. Unfortunately, he doesn't come with any charges, so I think the Ancient Stone route is a better way to go there. And of course, that Miskatonic trait plays in nicely with what Harvey can do once he picks up that purchase from his starter deck. The next card is Eye of Chaos. This is another sort of Rite of Seeking clone. It is a 5-cost Mystic asset with a Intellect skill icon, spell, and cursed. Enters play with 3 charges. You can take an action and spend a charge to investigate. Investigate using willpower instead of intellect. If you succeed, discover 1 additional clue at this location. If a cursed token is revealed during this investigation, you may discover 1 clue at a connecting location or place 1 charge on Eye of Chaos. So this is, we know that cursed and blessed tokens are going to be a big part of this cycle. We are receiving 10 of each in the deluxe expansion. And most of these cards, most of the token effects are keyed to player cards. So you can play with these tokens in any campaign. This one in particular fires off of a curse token. Now, curse tokens, if you draw them, they are a -2, and you have to draw again. So if you draw a curse token with this in play, you are automatically taking a -2 to your skill test. So you're going to want to be... the nice thing is, actually, about this, now that I'm reading it again, is that this is not on success. It's simply if you reveal a curse token as part of this test, you can either discover 1 extra clue for a total of 3 clues, or you can add a charge to Eye of Chaos, so you can continue to do this. Now, 5 cost, that is, I thought Rite of Seeking was expensive at 4. 5 is that's a lot. That's a lot for a card, especially in Mystic, who are already starved for resources sometimes, unless they're playing something like David Renfield to generate a pile of resources. Now, the effect is good if you play this with any of the reveal tech, Olive McBride, what's that other one? Any of the Chaos Bag manipulation abilities, Jacqueline Fine. Chances are you could probably reveal a curse token pretty easily. So this is you could probably trigger this pretty consistently if you're able to keep a lot of curse tokens in the Chaos Bag. We don't really know many cards that add curse tokens to the bag yet, so it really will depend on how many cards there are that do that, and whether you are able to, one, not only get them in the bag, but also keep them in the bag, since they will, once you draw a blessed or cursed token, it is discarded. We'll look at a couple cards that change that up a little bit, but for the most part, you're going to constantly want to find ways to either get blessed or cursed tokens in the bag in order to leverage them for their ability. So it's a little difficult to say right now whether Eye of Chaos is going to be good or not. I mean, I like the fact that you're getting two clue tokens automatically with the option of a third or a charge. So you can say if you reveal a curse token and fail, you are not losing that charge. You can get that charge back. Or if you reveal a curse token and succeed, you can get an extra clue, which is I mean, that's a win-win, I think, there. So that's pretty good. 5 resources though, that's I'll pay it. Sure. I mean, if you're going to play the card, you've got to pay it. So, but if you want that sort of win-win, if you pull a curse token, you are going to have to pay for it. Now, I should note that the one other card that was spoiled for this Mythos pack, it was on Reddit. It's called Armageddon. It is also a Mystic card. It is basically Shriveling with this sort of, if a curse token is revealed during the fight action, you get to deal an additional damage to an enemy or add a charge to Armageddon. So basically the same templating, except for damage instead of discovering clues. So we're seeing that curse token theme running through the Mystic card pool that we're seeing here. Now, the preview article for, I believe it was on the live stream, Matthew and Jeremy mentioned that the Mystic class is, they can use blessed or cursed tokens. So obviously, Eye of Chaos and Armageddon are going to be more on the cursed side of things. We'll have to wait and see. Are there enough cards that will add enough cursed tokens to the bag that you can trigger this consistently? Until we know that, it's going to be really tough to say, how good this card is going to be. But I like the looks of it so far. Now, the other card, we can barely make out Breaking and Entering. It is a rogue event, 2 cost, intellect and agility skill icons, trick trait, and it says add your agility skill value to your skill, probably for this investigation. If you succeed by I would assume 2. You may additionally evade Anne. So this is probably if you get to add your agility skill value to your investigation. If you're playing Trish Scarborough, who comes out in the deluxe box, that's going to be probably a 7 or an 8. In terms of, I think she's probably a 4 investigate, 4 agility. So that's an 8. That's pretty amazing. And then if you succeed, probably by 2, you get to automatically evade an enemy at your location as well. So that works for rogues. The ability is somewhat reminded me of, speaking of Archaic Glyphs Prophecy Foretold, I mentioned it earlier. It's sort of the same sort of idea. The glyphs you investigate, and if you succeed, you may automatically evade an engaged enemy. I imagine that that breaking and entering is probably investigate if add your agility skill value to your skill value for this investigation. If you succeed by 2, you may automatically evade an engaged enemy. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Something like that. So an effect similar to Archaic Glyphs Prophecy Foretold, but on an event in the rogue card pool. So a nice card there. It is level 0, so another way for rogues to pick up some clues without early on in the game before they get to, say, lockpicks and stuff like that. So. And finally, we have the Mariner's Compass. This we simply don't know enough about it. It has exhaust, Mariner's Compass. You succeed, something, pool, discover. So, discover a clue. Who knows? Not enough card there to know what the Mariner's Compass does. But maybe more clue discovery for survivors. So those are that's the card fan. I like breaking and entering, the Eldritch Sophist and the Eye of Chaos. I think those are going to be going to see play. The Riot Whistle, I'm kind of shocked by, I guess. I'm not entirely sure why it is here. Engage actions are not that common. And certainly not common enough to warrant spending a card and 2 resources on it. But we shall see. Maybe deep ones require this sort of tech, and we shall find out. Now, there was one other card. There were 3 other cards, I should say, in the preview article. There was one rogue card, Skeptic. It is a rogue skill, costs 1 experience point. It has a wild skill icon. It has the practice trait, which works with Practice Makes Perfect from Dark Side of the Moon. During this skill test, treat the modifier of each blessed and each cursed token as +1 instead of its normal modifier. So, back when the Innsmouth conspiracy was revealed, Jeremy and Matthew said that the rogues rogues went all in on curse tokens, but they had cards that helped them mitigate the downside of drawing those curse tokens, which are -2s. And I assume that this is an example of that. So if you, during a skill test, you get to treat the modifier of each blessed and each curse token as +1 instead of its normal modifier. So if you are playing a ton of curse tokens, say because you are packing copies of Faustian Bargain from the deluxe expansion, which adds 2 curse tokens to the bag, Skeptic gives you a way out of that, so you can play Faustian Bargain, and then when you do skill tests, you can play Skeptic and prevent all those curse tokens you've added to the bag. Skeptic turns them into +1s instead of -2s. And it is each curse token, so say if you chain multiple curse tokens together, so instead of drawing -2, -2, -2, you get +1, +1, +1, which would be, obviously, that's really good. Again, it's hard to judge how good these cards are going to be because we don't really know a lot about the cards besides Faustian Bargain that add blessed and cursed tokens to the bag. So it's hard to say whether the cards that interact with them are good. But this seems, if you're playing a rogue who's going all in on cursed tokens, Skeptic seems like you're going to want to pick that up just to prevent yourself from having some really awful skill tests as you draw multiple cursed tokens and dig yourself a deep hole. Skeptic will prevent that. So as far as rogues go, I think this one is probably going to be definitely a keeper for the rogue class if they go all in on the cursed tokens. And with cards like Faustian Bargain that gives you 5 resources split amongst investigators as you wish, it is definitely worth playing for that 5 resources. So having a way to mitigate those cursed tokens with Skeptic is very valuable indeed. Finally, we are getting, each class is getting a covenant. And the covenants also interact with the blessed and cursed tokens. The preview article gave us 2 examples of the covenants. Now, covenants are permanents, so they start the game in play. Both of these cost 2 experience points, so I assume that all covenants will probably cost 2 experience points. And it is limit 1 covenant per deck. So if you are playing a multi-class investigator, say a guardian or off-class guardian, you can only include, like Roland. Roland could play the Guardian Covenant or the Seeker Covenant, but he can't play both. So you only get 1 covenant per deck. We get examples of the Survivor and Seeker Covenants. The Survivor is the Ancient Covenant. It has a response when an investigator at your location resolves a blessed token during a skill test. Exhaust Ancient Covenant. Do not reveal another token as part of this blessed token's effect. I've gone back and forth on this one. During my analysis of the Deluxe, the Innsmouth Conspiracy Deluxe expansion, I delved into some detail about the odds associated with the blessed and cursed tokens. And the cursed tokens are definitely worth mitigating. They can be potentially really nasty if you draw them. They can take a test that you thought you were going to pass and turn it on its head so you fail. The blessed tokens do not have as big an effect, especially if your modified skill value is above the skill test difficulty, which is how I tend to play the game. Like when I'm taking skill tests, I generally try to get, if I'm playing on standard difficulty, I try to get 2 above the difficulty So in that case, blessed tokens really don't affect you that much. I mean, they help a little bit. Like if you draw one, it's great. You're almost guaranteed to automatically succeed. But if you were 2 above, you already had a pretty good chance of succeeding. So it's sort of like win more. And I'm not sure Ancient Covenant is going to be worth it if you play that way. Like if you're already doing well on a skill test and then you bump it up with a blessed token, I feel like you're already going to succeed. So pulling another token, really if you're 2 up before the pull, you pull a blessed token, you're at +2, so now you're at +4. The only token in a bag, unless the bags in this campaign is really negative, is the -4 usually. And so you're still going to succeed even if you pull that token. So spending the 2 experience points on Ancient Covenant doesn't seem that good to me. Now, I could see a circumstance where you would want this. Say if you're playing a Survivor who is taking a lot of low odd tests. Say you're at the skill difficulty. So say you're doing Rotting Remains, you're 3 willpower versus 3 willpower, and you pull a blessed token. Then this card becomes really good because you can exhaust it and cap that test at +1. So instead of, say, you go up by 2, and then you've got to pull another token on top of that. There's still odds of failing because there's still, you've got the -3, the -4, the auto fail, plus any of the other negative tokens in the bag. Your odds are still pretty good of passing it, but this just makes sure that if you're at that lower end when you take the test, this comes in and just seals the deal for you. So if you're taking a lot of low odd tests, like your odds of success aren't very good to begin with, this card is, I think, quite good in that style of deck. My play style is I try to, like the tests I need to pass, I always want to be 2 up if I can, and sometimes I'll even go 3 or 4. So a card like this isn't going to do me much good because I'm going to draw a blessed token. I'm already going to be at +4, and then I don't really care unless the bag is awful. Now this also is good, probably very good if you're playing on hard or expert, where the tokens in the bag are much, much worse. So you're getting -6s, -7s, -8s in there. So pulling that blessed token would be awesome, and then capping it off so you don't have to draw another one would be really good. So I'm not sure this is the card for me, but I can definitely see this being played in many other decks, either a survivor who's taking a lot of tests at bad odds, or if you're playing on hard or expert, where the bag, you really want to draw as few tokens as you can. So if you get that blessed token, you're really going to want to just stop there and go from there. The Seeker card, the Seeker Covenant, is again the same, 2 experience points, Covenant and Cursed. Permanent, limit 1 Covenant per deck. It has the response: when an investigator at your location reveals a Curse token during a skill test, exhaust Blasphemous Covenant. Treat that token's modifier as +1 instead of its normal modifier. After this test ends, return that token to the Chaos bag. So I like this one a lot more than I like the Ancient Covenant, because I think it's going to be a lot more useful, certainly at standard difficulty. Where I play at, the curse tokens can have a absolutely awful effect on your odds. If you pull one, you could be 2 up before the pull. You pull a curse token, now you're down to 0, and your odds of success have just... I think when I did the math back for the Innsmouth Conspiracy video, it was like half or 3/4. Like, it really damages your odds badly. So a card that lets you turn that curse token into a +1 for any investigator at your location, that's really good, and especially because Seekers, along with Rogues, tend to play more with the curse tokens. There is the new unidentified asset in the deluxe expansion. I can't remember whether you need 5 or 10. Maybe it's 10 curse tokens in the bag. So having the Blasphemous Covenant in there to protect you from those curse tokens is going to be would be huge. So I do like this one quite a bit more, just because the effect of the curse tokens is much worse than the benefit you get from the blessed tokens, if that makes any sense. So yeah, you pull a curse token, you cap it. Now the downside here is, of course, 1, you've still got to pull another token. So if there are a lot of curse tokens in the bag, potentially you draw a -2, so then you're at -1 plus another pull. So it doesn't guarantee that you're going to succeed. It simply mitigates the first curse token that you pull. And 2, after the test ends, you have to put that curse token back. So rather than when you pull a blessed or curse token, it is removed from the bag until you have another effect that puts it back in. With this, with Blasphemous Covenant, you have to put the curse token back in. So you buy yourself some time on the front end, but in the long term, that curse token is still going to be there to hurt you. Now, hopefully, you use this on the right test during your turn, and then you get through that turn. Then next turn, it's ready again, so you can exhaust it again to prevent that curse token from coming back to bite you in the ass. So yeah, there's I mean, there are pros and cons to it for sure, but I think this one is definitely going to be worth picking up if you're playing a lot of curse tokens. Now we know The Seekers play a lot of curse tokens based on some of the cards we saw in the deluxe expansion. We also saw Rogues play a lot of curse tokens, and Trish Scarborough is a Rogue Seeker. So this seems, if you're playing a Rogue Seeker, I think Blasphemous Covenant is going to be one of those cards that you are definitely going to want to pick up to save yourself some grief from all of the curse tokens that you will presumably be adding to the bag, because the effects you will get for them are going to be so amazing from cards like Faustian Bargain and whatnot. So those are the only two covenants we see. I definitely like the Seeker one more than the Survivor one on the just at first glance, but I can definitely see where the Survivor one has a place in other decks. Well. That is going to do it for our preview of In Too Deep, the first Mythos pack from the Innsmouth Conspiracy Cycle. I'm getting very excited about this deluxe expansion and campaign. I like the look of this particular scenario. Getting to, much like Search for Kadath did with the Dreamlands, this really gives you an opportunity to explore a lot of those iconic locations in the town, and so while it's being flooded and barricades are set up and you're being chased by deep ones, there is going to be so much going on. This one sounds really fun really fun to me. We've got a look at what the deep ones do. You're going to be chased by them constantly because they're hunters. They have engage effects that are going to make probably not solo much different, but multiplayer, you're going to have to think a lot about who is engaging what when, just to try to prevent some of those effects from triggering more often than you would like. The barricades, who knows? I mean, it really depends on the setup of the map. If those locations are able to be moved around a little bit, north-south, I don't think they'll be moving east-west, but if they're moving north-south, then that could create quite an interesting play experience each time you play it, because the barriers are going to be different between each of those locations. The triggers to remove those barriers are going to be different. So each time through is going to be really, you're going to have to really think about, okay, do I want to cross here and maybe take a damage, or do I want to move down or up to find a better location? There might be more barriers there, but I don't have to say take 3 damage to remove them. So it sounds like there is a lot of choice in this scenario, and it is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. The player cards look very promising. The Mystic cards, as someone who plays a lot of Mystics, I'm looking forward to seeing what cards add curse tokens to the bag, since the cards we know about deal with curse tokens. So far, every card I've seen from this pack looks really good except the Riot Whistle. It seems like once again, it always seems like every campaign, the Guardians end up getting some kind of junk card in either the deluxe box or the first Mythos pack. I'm thinking back, of course, to Blackjack. I believe that came out in, was it Miskatonic Museum or something like that? Just, a card so narrow that it just is not going to see play, and maybe Riot Whistle will become standard issue in every Guardian deck, but I just don't see it at this time. But besides that one, the player cards look really good. And of course, we've got the Covenants as well. That new permanents, 2 experience points a pop. We've seen 2 of them. Definitely, they are going to have their uses, especially if you are going all in on the Blessed and Cursed token. So hopefully, we'll be receiving maybe another preview article for the deluxe expansion that will go into a little more detail about the cards that add the Blessed and Cursed tokens, and we'll see how this mechanic plays out. It's going to be it's a little hard to judge how this mechanic works until we really get to play with it. And it's only October. This is coming out October. The deluxe expansion will be released. and then this will be out in November, presumably. So we do not have too long to wait before we will visit Innsmouth. I am excited, and I hope that you are too. That is going to do it for this preview. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromleng@gmail.com. I am also on Twitter at manfromleng. Make sure you head over to patreon.com to sign up to become a patron of the channel and see your name in lights. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.